Hello, everyone. So I'm so sorry. I had to try this streaming at least twice. Is it working? Okay, there seems to be a delay, but even if there's nobody, I honestly cannot wait any longer to swatch these because I am much too. I really want to start playing with some of these colors, so I am simply going to start swatching. If anybody joins, please feel welcome to put anything in the chat. I will try to keep an eye out. Hey, Cats and Cradle, welcome. I rarely post. This is my only second live session ever. So I am going to be swatching these colors from Roman Szmal. Yes, so they came out, I think, at the end of 2024. I'm not I feel like I saw a few videos out in November and in December, and there were quite a few quinacridons. I just have been collecting all the Roman Szmal paints I could get my hands on, and there's the limited edition from Lapis Lazuli Afghan and November 2024. And basically what happened was, for the past year, I've been trying to get my hands on the October 2023 color, but I took way too long to decide whether I wanted it or not. And by the time I thought, okay, let me get it, it was no longer there. So I was like, this time around, I was like, okay, let me get the limited one and get the new colors that came out. I'm just gonna drop this a little lower and hopefully it's close enough so you can see the paints. Already. Okay, there's going to be quite a few little mishaps going on, I have a feeling. So in case you're wondering, I am using, this is Bao Hong cold press paper. And I already put the colors names in the back. And, you know, if there's any colors you want to see a little closer, I should be able to accommodate. I'm going to try and keep this under an hour. If we have time, I might be able to do a quick color wheel with like 3 main colors. And I only have one potential yellow, so that's going to be interesting. And none of these blues are true blues, so that's also going to be interesting if I get to that point. But we're going to swatch them. And the way I like to swatch usually is at the bottom, putting a little bit of water, just clean water. And then as I build the color, I can let it simply push and see how the color itself moves. I think it's always interesting. One thing I rarely do is figure out whether it's transparent or not, so I don't really bother with the black line, because these are like quick swatches, and I didn't want to take the time to wait for whatever water resistant ink to dry out, because sometimes it takes longer than you think, and then the color gets muddled. So I'd rather just get the color down. So this first one is 380 nickel azo gold, which is a mix of several colors. It's a little small on screen. Actually, so this is PY 150. That's interesting. Oh no, PY 150 and PR 102. So it's a two pigment. Okay. Let's see. And you have a feeling this is probably one way of them approximating like the original quinacridone gold, because it has more warmth. And I know a lot of the quinacridone golds, after quinacridone gold disappeared, are usually a mix of PO48 and some other color, often PY 150. But PO48 is being discontinued, or has been discontinued just about everywhere. I think Daniel Smith still has some. And quinacridone gold disappeared a long time ago. Well, long, maybe 5 to 6 years ago. And sometimes I like letting a white spot there, just see how, whether the color will travel there or not. It does a little. I have the original quinacridone gold, and we can probably do it and compare if you want to see how it compares. So in this one, I have the original quinacridone gold. You can do it in a smaller swatch. Because the one thing I always found, the difference between quinacridone gold and any other, you know, non-quinacridone golds that are trying to be basically a hue. The big difference to me is always, especially if they use PY 150 for the fake one, it has more of this almost acid yellow, whereas quinacridone gold doesn't have that same kind of acid intensity. It's softer. So sometimes in the mass tone, it looks similar, but the moment you dilute quinacridone gold, the real PO49, it doesn't have the same undertone. You can see. So maybe if I go a little stronger here at the top, it's going to bloom, but oftentimes I do feel like they can approximate quinacridone gold fairly well at a more mass tone. It's when it gets diluted that you can see the difference between what's quinacridone gold, which is much warmer and softer, compared to anything with PY 150. I know. I think that's the main thing I think people really loved about quinacridone gold. It has a softer glow to it that's not quite the same as any other paint with PY 150, which is probably why some of the good quinacridone golds after the original one disappeared were made with I'm not sure what the PO 48 is called, quinacridone orange or something. I know. Honestly, when quinacridone gold disappeared, I remember running to the store trying to get the last couple of tubes as they still had in, and I've been guarding them jealously, and I top off all my pans at least once a year, but quinacridone gold I don't top off. Yes, quinacridone burnt orange. Yeah, that's the name. Okay, so now we're gonna do burnt sienna brownish 139 PBR 7. So definitely when they say brownish, they mean brownish. Because you know how burnt sienna sometimes can be a little more orange? This one is already a much more neutral burnt sienna. Okay, let me put this aside. Now we are going to do lava. Lava 384. And this is a mix of many colors. It's PG7, PB29, and PR255. So basically you have a green, a blue, and a red. So this one I think we should be putting a lot of water to see if it separates and if it does anything in particular with the colors. It's so funny. I remember when I started watercolors, you keep hearing don't use multi-pigment paints. Oh, this is nice though. I'm trying to remember if it reminds me of, I think it's Morellone in A Gallo. Because the other one would be Notturno, and I think that one's more violet, whereas this one, you can really, I don't know if you can see some of the separation, and you can see the red. I do feel Roman Szmal makes some really nice paints that have like ooh. So when I'm like sucking up some of the water there, and I can see either the green or the blue because it's like it looks very gray in this area. Okay, and now this one I thought was interesting. It's Iron Chromite Black 273. And it says it's a PBR 29. And I remember double checking because it was like PBR, but it's a black. Oh, wait, before. Let me wet this. Okay, wet enough. And now, what I really like about Roman Szmal is because I don't I don't spray any of these paints ever. They reactivate so easily. This is interesting. It has this soft gray feeling to it. I thought it would maybe granulate more. We'll see. It feels almost like one of those blacks that are made from a mix of pigments as opposed to a single pigment color. But I don't see any separation in colors. And we'll see how it dries and if there's maybe more texture. All right, now we're going to forest green. Remove that. So 271 forest green, and the mix is PB29, PBR11, and PY150. So I expect granulation from the PB29 and PBR11. I'm always curious about greens because so many greens have to be mixes. There's so few greens that are single pigments. And I do a lot of plein air. So I like having greens. Let's see if it separates or gives any effects. Come on, let me add more. See. I don't see separation of color, but I do see some granulation. So yeah. Now let's see. German. It's this one. No, that's Davies Gray. German Green Earth 138. So this is a Terre Verte PG 23. Doo, doo, doo. I don't know how well this one is going to re-wet. Sometimes the Terre Verte get a little gummy. And this is a very neutral green earth. Fairly low tinting, but that's no surprise for a green earth. Doesn't move much. Doesn't show much. Ooh, this one's getting interesting. The forest green. Some areas you can see the brown settling in. And on the very edge, you see it as slightly more yellow coming from the PY 150. That's one thing I really like about watercolors. You put things down and eventually they will surprise you. Ooh, okay. So now we're going to go toward Davies Gray, which is a mix of colors. And I wonder how it will compare to the German Green Earth, because I think it's also a very low tinting off gray color. So Davies Gray 274, and this one is a mix of PBK 19 and PBK 32, so two black pigments, which I'm guessing are very low tinting pigments. So like Green Earth, it's a little gummy. Ooh. To me, this color, if you took seafoam green and then neutralized it, I think you can tell how gummy these can be because I think they're so low tinting and they probably don't like being turned into watercolors. You can see the marks, but they soften up. So if we look at it directly compared to the other one, they're like cousins. This one's a little yellower and this one's a little bluer. All right. Now, next, we're going to do the lapis lazuli Afghan. So, if I remember correctly, Roman Szmal has two lapis lazulis. There's the one from Chile, and then there's the Afghan one. And if I remember correctly, the Afghan one is more expensive. I really like lapis lazuli, but I don't know why. It's one of those colors that first, I just love the name. Two, I love its history. Three, I love how low tinting it can be, but has usually a lot of texture. Yeah. And I love that like, I think Kremer is the first lapis lazuli that I got. It has so much texture, but it's a very grayed out one. I don't think it's the Afghan version. I think it's the Chilean version. But even then, the quality of lapis lazuli makes it more expensive. So the more gray it is, usually the least expensive the pigment is. And this one is fairly neutral, but it doesn't have grayness to it. It reminds me a lot of cerulean. So I have a few videos that I've done in the past, way in the past, where basically it's a myth and watercolor, where I go through a couple of myths and, just draw some people, which are like gods or, from the stories of like Greek mythology. And I paint them with lapis lazuli. So instead of, you know, natural skin colors, they're blue. Because in my brain, for some reason, if you're a god, you're blue. You're made of lapis lazuli. I think that was my way of like putting it. I mean, it's pretty, but I understand why most people wouldn't get this color because you can probably approximate. There's so many modern colors, but I collect them, so I'm good with it. Oh, this is November, so this is one of their limited editions. I don't know quite the story from these. Okay, so I don't think it even has pigment information. Yeah, so basically, if I understand, because I think Schminka and some other brands do this, is at some point during the year, they go through all the remaining pigments from the factory floor or something, and they put them all together and they make a color that they sell because it's the gray of that year. Basically, from all the production, this is what remains. We put it all together and we made a paint. And that's why it's limited edition, because you can't really replicate it. It's going to be different every single time that you batch process these. And this year, it happens to be that the gray looks very blue. Because if I remember correctly, a lot in 2023, it was a brownish color. But yeah, I think Schminka does this, and they're usually very gray. So I don't know if it's the same thing. I should look it up. I just made an assumption that that's what this is. The thing is, since it's a one-time color, and they probably don't have a recipe for it. If you fall in love with it, well, too bad, so sad. You're not getting another one. It is pretty though. Okay. You know, you think you organize yourself, putting everything around you, and then you start not having any space left and you're not quite sure where to put things. So sorry, I just want to keep things in order, but at the same time, out of the way. Oh, okay. Good thing we're more than halfway done. Okay, so this is indigo greenish. Where's the little, here it is. 272, indigo greenish, and the PB153, PG7, and PBK7. So I wonder if this one is going to separate and give me texture. Because that would be lovely. Ooh. You know when you take colors and you feel like, oh, this is going to be very inky, deep and inky, just because of the little puddle you create. This is so pretty. It's so funny because I do love color, so I'm always going like, oh, this is so pretty. And I'm trying to think, have I ever like swatched something and not thought to a degree that it was pretty? I might get annoyed with texture, I might get annoyed with like how gummy things are, I can get annoyed with different things. But somehow, every time the color itself is like, oh. Come on. Give me more, give me more. Oh, so inky. Like I want to see if I can move it around, if it's going to give me anything. There's a bit of granulation going, but we'll let it settle, and see how it develops. Mineral pink. Get this out of the way. If I remember correctly, 379. It's a mix of PB29 and PR122. I feel like there's a lot of colors that are this mix specifically. Is it like Imperial Purple? Or like Daniel Smith has a couple. And I never know whether the PB29, the ultramarine, is going to be like a fine one or a coarser one where the granulation and separation is going to be more significant, or is it going to be like a very fine ultramarine and things won't separate as much. I don't know. So this one definitely is a purple with a lot more PR 122. Ooh. And this is why I like putting water, because then I can look at it flow. And this one is flowing beautifully. I'm not even going to put any at the bottom. I'm going to let it settle. But I don't see any blue separating yet, so. So that's what's making it, you know, sometimes they have so different ultramarines. And sometimes they have a very fine one that doesn't granulate much. And this is where I'm like, okay, maybe they use that one. I can see a little bit of like dotting there, but it's not quite significant. Ooh, it's so pretty. All right, quinacridone magenta. And this is where it's gonna get a little, which one's which? So this is warm. They really came out with like a lot of quins. And technically this one, the one we just did, mineral pink, is a magenta with blue. Ooh, now that it moved a little, you can see a little bit more blue. So yeah, if you make it bloom, let's make it bloom. Let's let the water move a little more so we can see some texture when it's dried. Yeah, I know the quinacridones. You know what's so funny, and I have a feeling there's quite a few people like this. I love quinacridones, but I'm not a big phthalo girl. I know quinacridones can be staining, and I don't mind that because the payoff is so impressive. Okay, so this one's going to be quinacridone magenta intense, and for some reason the PR, it's the pigment PRNA is not available. I don't know what that means. Why is the pigment itself not available, even though we know it's a quinacridone? But yeah, so I'm a big fan of quinacridones, but I usually stay away from phthalos. I think part of it's that there are a lot of blues that are not phthalos that are still very vibrant. Whereas when you get to the reds, if it's not a cadmium, and cadmiums are warm in color, not cool, you don't really have, other than like alizarin, the pinkish reds, right? So I will always have a quinacridone in my palettes. Ooh, did I? Oh, did I mix up the... I maybe have mixed up the carmine hue. Because this doesn't look like a quinacridone. I think this is the carmine hue. Okay, so I need to take note of that. PR221. Yeah, this is carmine hue. It's not a quinacridone. Okay. It's funny because I could tell immediately the moment I put the brush in, because it like no quinacridone that I've ever come across is gummy. So you know how like cobalts and viridian can be a little gummy. This carmine hue is the equivalent in the sense that it's soft, has a different texture, and I guess we can get it dark with layers and several layers, but I have a feeling it wouldn't. It's not a staining one. It would lift fairly easily. So, okay, so that's carmine hue. And now we're just gonna have to make sure. Like, I really hope I didn't mess up all the colors. This is what happens. You prepare, and then everything doesn't go as planned. So, okay, I think we're gonna guess. We're gonna have to guess. Because I mixed up the cards in the back, and at this point, I don't know which one's which, but we're gonna, and this is why I like about these pan covers, because it is the real color, then you'll be able to go like, oh, okay, so it has to be this one. Okay. Let's keep it in the order I have it here, so at least there's some order somewhere. I mean, let's face it. Like, how pretty is this? Oh yeah, no. Roman Szmal and A Gallo, they have their swatching of pans down to perfection. Yeah. Like I do plein air and I do a lot of botanicals. So having choices when it comes to quinacridones and the different pinks and the different magentas is such a thing. Because you might, some people might think, why would you need so many pinks? And you're like, yeah, but this particular flower has more of a pinkish undertone, and this one's it's a little warmer. There's a little bit of coral in it. Oh, is it? I know it's not this one, so I know it's not this one. And this one's cooler than that one. So we're going to have to like do the second one. So I know for a fact which one we're dealing with. Like at some point I need to count, but I remember back in the day, Daniel Smith had probably the highest number of quinacridone colors in their collection. I'm fairly sure Roman Szmal has surpassed them. Ooh, pink, pink, pink. This feels very Barbie. Yee-hee. So definitely it would have to be this one. So this one is quinacridone rose, PRNA, And ooh, it reminds me of some operas. So I don't know if it means that it's PR 122 with an opera or PV 19 with an opera. Like some fluorescence. I don't know. I don't know. PRNA. But it says light fast 8, which is the highest. So it probably doesn't have any fluorescence. Let's add more. I know. I always get a little annoyed when I don't know what's in it. We'll see how different they are when they dry, but you can already tell the difference, right? And this one is by default going to have to be 416, which is quinacridone magenta intense. Intense. And this one too, it says PR and A, and supposedly less light fast, 7 out of 8. I know, so many PRNAs. I was so surprised. So this is the one you're curious about seeing with the yellow? Okay, I'll make sure we use it in the color wheel because we're going through these quickly. Well, I don't know if quickly, but definitely under an hour, I think. Yeah, no, I remember I did a couple of flowers years ago with an opera and either Queen Gold or a Nicolazzo. And it makes for some gorgeous oranges. It's one of those things you kind of need to be careful of because you know anything that's fluorescent, any opera, is not going to be light fast. But if it's for myself, I can do whatever I want. I'm not selling it. But I can see why you would want to and when you would want to buy something made with it because they shine so much. The operas in like mixes. So yeah, no, I'm very curious about whether DNAs went in because they were pushing these out and they weren't ready, or I would need to look online if they've published yet what colors they are. Because this one feels like a PR 122 maybe. The thing with quinacridones is, yeah, PV 19, they come in like 50 different, colors depending on which brand, and they have the purple one and they have the pink one, and some of them have like a more red one. So yeah, this one would be the quinacridone magenta intense. This one's drying out already and it's looking a little less pink, but it's still much pinker than this one. So PR Rose. So let's see how the other ones have dried up already. So the nickel azul gold dried out next to the original quinacridone. And always at the most intense, they do look the same, but it's here. You'll see the difference. I'm gonna miss this color when I don't have it anymore. I feel nickel azo yellows, the PY150s, they are great as like if you have a single only 3-color palette, they can go warm or they can go cool enough that they can do just about anything. Burnt sienna brownish. I don't know if I needed to put more pigment. I think it had enough water. It didn't granulate that much. There's a little bit of sedimentation, but not that much. Lava. This is, I probably got some paint there. You'll see probably the PB29 mixing in here with the red to neutralize. You can see how blue it goes on the edges here. Yeah, I do feel like Roman Szmal does some really good separating paints. So iron chromite black PBR29. It did give me some granulation. I don't know if this is a mistake because they call it a PBR29 and not a PBK29, but it may be an actual brown. It's just this one is not brown, and I don't see a lot of warmth to it either. It feels a fairly neutral gray. There's just a little bit of warmth, maybe. Okay, so let's move on to the forest. Forest green, which was a mix of PB29, PBR11, and PY150. And this one, if are you talking about forest green, or are you talking about iron chromite black? I thought Van Dyke brown was a mix of colors. So it's iron chromite black, even though it's a PR29. Because Van Dyke, I feel like every time I've seen it has been a mix. This one reminds me of, is it Serpentine Genuine from Daniel Smith? A little. It's a green that has like this brownish undertone and like some sedimentation. Okay. There's a little bit of a delay, so sometimes I need to wait for you to to respond before I move on. Okay. I mean, it's pretty. I mean, I feel honestly like all these colors that sometimes Daniel Smith does that are like all these Primatech genuines are we know are a mix of, you know, more common pigments with whatever gemstones that they're putting in. And I think Serpentine Genuine is one of those. I feel I feel Roman Szmal does some really nice greens. Aquarius green is one of those that's really good from them. Well, let's look at the cousins. German Green Earth, PG23, and this one, Davies Gray, which is the mix of PBK 19, PBK 32. Slightly yellower, slightly bluer, but they definitely look like they grew up together. Yeah, I mean, I can make use of these colors, but it's one of those when, I don't know, I always feel weird about some of these colors. I like them, and then I realize I don't use them as much as I probably should. Lapis lazuli, it dried light, some texture, not tons of it. I feel like I should go and see if I can have my Kremer one, which is the complete opposite of this in the sense it's a lot grayer and it has so much texture. It's very soft. I mean, it's a beautiful color, but it is so soft. Okay, so November 2024. I love how it moved. I don't see a lot of granulation or separation. And we don't know what it's made of. It's limited edition. If you want it, you need to get it before you're like me and a year later looking for the previous year and it's no longer available. But I mean, I'm fairly sure there's quite a few indigos and Payne's grays that are similar to this. This is so inky. So indigo greenish, PB15-3, PG7, and PBK7. So I don't know if at the top that's supposed to be granulation. I don't see much at all going on. But again, like the other one, it has a way of moving that was interesting in the water. Okay. Mineral pink. And by letting it bloom, you can see the separation of the blue. I have a feeling if the washes are very equal, they won't show as much. And oftentimes that's the way of getting texture. It's like letting the water take over and do crazy things. And then all of a sudden you can see the separation in pigments. It's pretty. I really like it. So this would be Carmine Hue, PR221. And you can see it does have some specks of granulation going on. And now the magentas. Quinacridone warm pink. This is the quinacridone rose. And this was the last one, quinacridone magenta intense. So for the the color wheel, you were curious about the quinacridone rose. So we're going to do quinacridone rose. We're going to do nickel azul gold. And now we just need to choose the blue equivalent. So this is indigo greenish, October 2024, and the lapis lazuli. Which one do you want to see? Okay. It's going to be interesting mixing because lapis lazuli is definitely not going to be a strong color and the other two are very strong. So we're going to have to kind of figure out how it mixes with intense colors. It's going to be interesting. Okay. Do. So normally I would start with the yellow, but because lapis lazuli is going to be the least tinting one, we're going to start with that one and then try to figure out how much of the other colors we need to mix in to be able to mix in a way that doesn't overpower it so much. Come on. I need to get some color puddle going on. Okay. So I usually like my yellow at the top, my magenta on this side, and then my blue. Okay. Let's make it strong enough so we have a good mass tone. So when you have such a low tinting color, you start with it and add a little bit of the other ones so it doesn't get overwhelmed. But it's going to be interesting because the quinacridone and the nickel azul gold are usually strong but very clean, non-granulating colors. So what we'll probably end up seeing is when they mix, a separation between the two and an interesting, texture. It's what I'm hoping for, because this lapis lazuli is not necessarily the one with the most texture, but it does have texture. Okay. 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 A little more lapis. Okay. Let's see how it goes. Let's see if it breaks into Do, do. Okay. Let's see if it dries with texture. Doesn't have that much. Oh, this is so pretty. So close to seafoam. And what's interesting is because the lapis is heavier than, because usually quinacridones and nickel colors are very finely milled. Within a wash, you can see the blue separating already. Okay. Let me clean that up so my lapis stays clean. Oh yeah, no, definitely. If you were to paint Aphrodite coming out of the ocean on seashells, I'd be using lapis or maybe a cerulean. Okay, hopefully that's enough. Okay, so Quinrose. Let's put it in its little corner. It's such a pretty color. Like, to me, this is a PV19. Looks like a PV19. But they won't tell me what it is. I don't know about you, but I love making, not huge on color charts so much as I love color wheels. I barely touched it with the pink. And you can see how it changes really quick. Like, this is a soft violet. I'm fairly sure I've seen some lilacs this shade. And now to add a little bit more. Ah. So that's the tricky thing when you have one of those soft colors in a color triad. It does, because of their low tinting strength, create almost this pastel. color story. Yeah, a pastel color story. That also means that you need to be careful. Now, I don't need to be careful with these two. These two are gonna go crazy with each other. I'm just gonna... Oh, make sure it's clean. Okay. This is gonna be interesting. Add a little bit more. Main goal is to get like maybe an orangey red, and the other one is going to be a very warm yellow. Oh, it's so pretty. So let me put a little bit of water. And now let's go. Woo-hoo-hoo. Oh no, that's fine, that's fine. I mean, it is pretty. Let's see. Come on, let's clean that up a little bit more. Let's instead drop the colors on each side and see how they meet. Oh yeah, no, it is. I mean, woo! I don't even have words. Okay, let's see. Come on. Run. And then this one. Let's see what they do. Let it go in. Maybe a little more of this. maybe get rid of some of this. There. Ugh. Now we would need to wait to see how it looks like dry, but I don't know if I want to keep you here just to look at paint dry. So maybe you can have a few questions if you have any questions, or if there's any mix you would like to see. This one's drying a little now. Should I mute myself and dry it with the hair dryer? Yeah, no, it's always tempting, isn't it? Oh, I always feel a little guilty when I decide to swatch things because I know I'm curious and I want to see the swatches. I want to see somebody show me what the colors kind of look like. But at the same time, I don't want to necessarily encourage people to just go and get more stuff because I know there's so much stuff to get. Oh, but if it could help you on a decision, then I'm glad. So what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to take pictures of this and, you know, post them on the community thing. So maybe you'll be able to come back later on. So yeah, those are the 13U Roman Szmal colors that came out at the end of 2024 and the 2 limited edition ones. And I am fairly sure they're at well over 200 colors at this point. So if you're collecting them, it's going to be a while. So I'm glad you were here. Thank you so much. I was supposed to go live at 12 and I had so many issues and I ended up being able to get here, but at 12:30 almost. And by that, I think some of the people gave up on me. Have a lovely day. Take care. Ciao.